The androids aren't the only incoming threat anymore. Welcome back to the Butter Bunch. My name is Jacob Butter, and I'm back with another Dragon Ball What If discussion. And another apology. I said in the What If Chi-Chi episode that I was bogged down with uni stuff to actually do, and as a result I end up focusing only on the main channel that I obviously do stuff on. It's my name, obviously, Jacob Butter. That's where I normally do stuff. And the Butter Bunch kind of just got a few scraps every now and then. I have neglected this particular channel that really was probably the most engaged, interactive segment that I've done in years, honestly. Maybe with the exception of the Mutant Girl. It depends. It's hard to tell with that sometimes. I just have to really apologize again for that. Particularly because if you know from watching Walking Wednesdays, then you would see that I was talking a lot about this festival that we were working on in drama, which basically took over everybody in the department's life. We all had more stuff to do than we thought we were, or that we should have done, really, realistically, with little help from management until much later down the line. And sometimes, obviously, we had to deal with things like COVID, etc. So it very much was a case where I needed to do like one channel. I tried to start a new gacha channel as well, and it did not go well because of that. But that's all over now. As of last week, that particular project is done, and I will actually be probably updating something about the musical that I wrote and directed later on, so you can know that I wasn't just, sitting or lying on my back or something like that. I don't know. So you know that I was doing some things. But now, we come back to the OG, the big question that has been on this channel since the very beginning, the way that it all started. We are continuing, what if Piccolo had a son? The ending to part 7 could be deemed as a controversial move, keeping a filler character around for parts of the anime that were completely adapted from the manga, sometimes verbatim. But the thing is, I hate Krillin and Marin's breakup so much that I couldn't help it. Just the fact that in one episode he goes from having complete faith in his relationship to suddenly thinking he wasn't good enough for her when, let's be honest, it's the other way around. So Marin stays for a while. And finally, the fated day comes when an important person in Krillin's life is due to return. Now, normally this would mean the arrival of King Cold and Mecha Frieza as well. However, given that King Cold ordered the Ginyu Force to take care of the Saiyan menace, he has washed his hands of this matter for the time being. Where are the Ginyu Force? Well, at this point, they're into their training phase after a new member was successfully recruited. Who is this new member? Well, it's time to take artistic liberties once again and insert another OC. She hails from a planet called Beppa, which is where Dore from the Cooler Force is from. Ginyu decided on her because Beppa has a history of producing tough, durable fighters given that its continent is surrounded by lava. He chose her for her innate endurance, stop it, her strength, obviously, and most importantly, because she wasn't against the weird poses that the captain insisted on, even suggesting some of her own. The poses thing may seem trivial, but I researched this and apparently Ginyu actually fired another member called Bonyu one time because she was disgusted at their poses. The poses are really important, dang it. And what is this member's new name? Why, it's Giricho. Since the Ginyu Force members are all named after dairy products, Ginyu being milk, Raccoon being cream, Goldo being yogurt, Berta being butter, and Jace being cheese. Now we have Giricho, from Giri Chocoreto, which means obligatory chocolate. Since all the other well-known dairy products are taken, it's obligatory, at this point, to use chocolate in a Ginyu Force member's name. It's a perfect match for everyone. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty proud of that one. In case you don't know, obligatory chocolate is apparently a thing in Japanese culture. Training with Giricho proved to be very fruitful, especially since he was able to take whatever the Ginyus dished at her, even the captain at times. But on one such training session, Ginyu received an emergency transmission from King Cold on his scouter. Frieza had succumbed to a Super Saiyan again. This time, for good. Yes, back on Earth, Frieza actually defected and set out to get revenge on his own, only taking a few disposable soldiers with him. But the Super Saiyan from the future isn't Trunks this time, since Vegeta is dead. No, this time the deed was done by none other than future Gohan. Yep, the cat's out of the bag immediately with this one, as the entire group recognized him at once. Except Marin, who tagged along. She took a bit to catch on, as you'd expect. Future Gohan holds back on explanations and on his excitement at being reunited with his friends until his father shows up right on cue. A little bit of an edit here. I realized that because Porunga never got summoned, no one realized that Goku survived the destruction of Namek. I look back and I don't think it affects the story in a major way, but if so, please let me know in the comments and I'll retcon it in the next episode. For right now, Goku's return is a complete surprise for everyone, and the most welcome one they've had in a long time. Bulma invites both Goku and Future Gohan to Capsule Corp to talk calmly, but Future Gohan declines. He doesn't want to stay for too long, he just wants to tell them about the android menace in 3 years and get back to the future. The offer was sorely tempting, but the only thing that he does is give Goku the heart medicine, this time in front of everyone. He looks back at the group, staring at little Guzhang for an extra long while, and disappears with his time machine. And so, 1 year passes out of the 3 preparing for the upcoming androids. Present-day Gohan had insisted that Guzhang be allowed to train with him, Goku, and Piccolo. Goku doubted that Guzhang could take it, but Piccolo stood up for his son. Outvoted, Goku allows this, and quickly sees why it was necessary for the toddler to be there. Even during training, Guzhang was constantly shielding Gohan in any way and preventing independence for the young Saiyan. Namekian children do grow up fast though, so he was starting to get enough mental discipline to hold back. To compensate for this, Goku leads them in training as a team, coming up with combo moves that let each other breathe as well as improve. And improve they did. Power levels at this point in the story become the subject of speculation, but using YouTube estimates, Gohan was at 2,150,000 in full power by the end of the Garlic Jr. arc, and therefore the same at the start of the Android saga. Piccolo was at a solid 2 million, and Goku was at 3,900,000 in his base form. So, given that this is 1 year down the line and not 3, let's say that these are the numbers right now. Gohan, 2,565,000, Piccolo, 15,750,000, Goku, 5,250,000, again in base form, and Guzhang, given the curveball, gets an exponential increase from 1,250 to 225,500. That's 180.4 Raditz right there. And that's his power when the new and improved Ginyu Force land on Earth for their revenge. The confrontation doesn't happen right away. The gang do sense their powers, but the Ginyus are aware of this and immediately scatter across the globe in search of the Dragon Balls. Obviously, this search goes practically nowhere, so Ginyu actually comes up with a different plan, which he communicates over his scouter. Alright men, and woman, here's the plan. Remember that Dragon Ball expert that was from here? Yep.
No.
Rikum remembers. Well, since we're clearly not going to find these things on our own, it's time we start looking for her instead.
But how are we going to do that, Captain? Her power's minuscule. Our scouts would never fixate on her.
Ah, but they would fixate on her friends. All of you, track down the strongest power levels near to you. She won't be far from one of them. And as fate would have it, the plan works. With no Vegeta around, Bulma stayed with Yamcha. So one of the Ginyus ends up at Capsule Corp by tracking him. Which one? Well, it's Giricho. Why? Because it's a brand new character and the audience will want to see her abilities. Said abilities do not usually include stealth, but she does find the quietest entrance to knock down with her shoulder. Once in the compound, she follows the power level to Bulma and Yamcha's bedroom, at which point Yamcha's senses kick in and he goes to investigate, discovering Giricho almost immediately. The former bandit springs into action. Who are you and what are you doing here? Giricho stumbles for a response.
I'm looking for the Dragon Balls.
Ah, I see. And you came to steal the dragon radar. Well, you can't have it. So on your way, Missy. This was new news for the Ginyus. There was a dragon radar. That was way easier than persuading the expert to play along. Oh, Yamcha, you and your ill-timed bravado. Maybe you are a bit like Vegeta in a way. Giricho changes her tune a little bit, more confident thanks to her discovery. She powers up and demands the radar at once. And so, we get the fight of Yamcha versus Giricho. Of course, it starts off with the Wolf Fang Fist, but Giricho just takes it. Even though under normal circumstances it would have packed a punch. She delivered her own punch in return, sending Yamcha flying, but the X-Bandit doesn't let her land another hit. Realizing how tough this gal is, he decides it's best to be on the defensive and tire her out, not accounting for how much energy he himself would be exerting. While this is going on, Bulma calls for backup. Krillin is the first to show, but he arrives at the same time as Jason Berta. Slowly but surely, everyone makes their way there, except for Goku and Gohan, whom Chi-Chi has banned from answering distress calls. Chaozu calls in Ten Shinhan from Lookout, while Piccolo, Dende, and Guzhang are the last to arrive. The first time that's ever happened for Guzhang, let's face it. Berta is especially pleased to see his old rival.
Well, well. If it isn't the baby Namekian. Fancy a race?
Guzhang never gets to answer as Berta charges into him. The pair are still as even as ever. Berta has taken the time to train his speed, circling around planets with high gravity, so he considered himself all caught up. And catch up he did. Guzhang doesn't even have the chance to charge up his ki with him. While that's going on, Piccolo takes on Jace, who's not as confident as a solo fighter. Most of his training was with Berta or with Giricho, who was currently resting after a draw with Yamcha. Raccoon wanted to face Ten Shinhan, but Ginyu insisted on taking him instead. So Raccoon decides to go for the small one, whom he was eager to take another swing at. This doesn't go well, and the Brute is very much overwhelmed by Krillin, even without his techniques. Ginyu, meanwhile, saw some success. When Ten Shinhan had him cornered, he actually pulls a fast one on him for a brief moment. But Ten Shinhan isn't fooled by this for long, 3 eyes and all, and knocks the purple alien out with a kick to the head, just when he was near Yamcha's body. With all the Ginyus defeated, the Z fighters decide not to take them out. Like in the olden days, they had just faced a series of foes that weren't actually a threat to them. They were to the planet, but as long as they didn't get their hands on the Dragon Radar, they could be separated and watched while the Breeze family set up something more permanent. Goku would have definitely approved of this idea. They can take the Ginyus, they'll be fine. As for the Dragon Radar, Yamcha took more initiative once he recovered his energy and decided one day to take it away from Capsule Corp and find a suitable place. No one thinks any of this until the sky turns black, like they'd seen many times before. Meanwhile, Yamcha is making a wish on Shenron, and that wish is... I wish for my soldiers and I to unlock the secrets and techniques of those puny earthlings that dare to put an end to Lord Frieza! That's right. Remember when Captain Ginyu gave Ten Shinhan the slip? Well, that was more than enough time to swap bodies with a weakened Yamcha and ensure the former bandit would be put out of commission before he could protest his innocence. Ginyu Yamcha doesn't feel any stronger, but does have some new knowledge, new potential undiscovered or downright impossible to access. He can now sense the Z fighters approaching to see what happened, and gives them the slip by hiding his power level. As it turns out, Ginyu Yamcha's plan worked to perfection. He broke back into Capsule Corp in the middle of the night and liberated his soldiers. He then switched back into his own body, and they all found their ships and left. Bulma then discovered and quizzed Yamcha in the morning, quickly figuring out what had happened and that the Ginyu force had gone. Knowing the battle was lost, but the war could now be fought on more equal terms. How would they all fare during the next encounter? Find out what happens next time on What If Piccolo Had a Son. So you might be wondering why I inserted another mini arc into the Android saga, especially considering that I just said before it's been 8 months since I've done any What Ifs pretty much. Well, first of all, that's because I wrote this part before that break happened, but second of all, is because it only made sense for the Ginyu to show up after a year or so after their last fight because of the approximate power level balance, and also considering the distance that Earth is at from the rest of Frieza's influence. Remember, it took the Saiyans about a year to get there. What do you all think, though, about the inclusion of them as reoccurring villains? That's not really something often seen in a show like Dragon Ball. Well, it was in OG Dragon Ball, but not so much anymore. I thought it'd be interesting to see the enemies get stronger alongside the heroes, at least this once, and I hope I did it justice. But before we find out any of that, let me know your thoughts by means of liking or disliking and leaving your comments on where the discussion could go. I'll see you all soon enough in another Butter Bunch video. Toodle pip!